The French Revolution was progressing swiftly into a radical period as we entered 1792 and 1793. The National Assembly had declared the monarchy invalid. And then was trying to determine what kind of government to set up. It was marked by divisions between the Girondins and the Jacobins, as well as joined with the Sans-Culottes. Ultimately, this resulted in a terrible episode of the September massacres in 1792. And by 1793, the king had been executed and a new system known as the French Republic was being established. This was underlaid with the paranoia that was resulting from the wars happening around the borders of France, as many of their neighbors sought to fight against the revolutionaries, fearing that revolution would spread to their own monarchies. The paranoia that also resulted from peasant revolts to the levee en masse, this mass conscription that happened in 1792, would lead many in Paris in particular to institute a period of purging and terror, which would cost many thousands of people their lives over the course of the next year and a half. These people were across all social spectrums, but certainly were many priests and many nobility. And this is all part of a much more radical or underlying cultural change that was implemented by the Committee of Public Safety. The Committee of Public Safety, the first president was Georges Danton, but eventually, and the most famous of the presidents, gained power, and that was Maximilien Robespierre, pictured here. The Committee of Public Safety told the people that Paris was and France were in no position to accept a full republic, and so the Committee of Public Safety would rule as a 12-man dictatorship in the interim until stability and order were provided. Under that, Maximilien Robespierre, as well as the Sans-Culottes, different kind of parties in their vision, but they both worked to implement an entirely different cultural change. This started with things such as time, calendars. Those days of the week were changed to a 10-day week. The years were changed, names and order, so it was more scientific, more standardized. The watch pictured here has the 10 days. It also shows the maintenance of the time system based on the 60 minutes. However, the week itself, because now that you have 10-day weeks, there were only 3 weeks per month, so you have 30-day months every single time, seeking to be more rational, more scientific, and more orderly. They also changed the years and named 1792 as year one of the revolution and counted up from there, year one until 1805. So we're 13 years of this revolutionary calendar. Clothing and norms changed, leisure changed, gambling was outlawed because it was such an aristocratic privilege, simplicity of dress was encouraged, the large hairdos that had been stylized in Versailles, those were all out. They were much too aristocratic, much too second estate. And people exchanged the names Madame and Monsieur for citizen. They changed many of their names to Roman names and really scrubbed clean many of the aristocratic as well as Christian influences upon French society. Along with this comes a religious spaces are re-envisioned. This was a building built by Louis XV in his attempt to build a new and better church than even St. Peter's Basilica. But very quickly in the Revolution, it was taken over and named the Pantheon, which is the name of the Roman temple in Rome back in ancient times. Notice the architecture, it's incredibly neoclassical, and it becomes kind of a center of artwork and sculptures in praise of the revolution rather than anything else. Churches such as Notre Dame were re-envisioned into temples of reason. And there was this girl kind of pictured in these two pictures here who acted out reason herself and went through elaborate rituals to demonstrate and almost de-Christianize the church itself through this situation. By 1794, Maximilien Robespierre thought that the Temple of Reason had kind of wasn't really serving purposes, and so he introduced a new religion, and that was the cult of the Supreme Being, pictured in the colored picture below. Here you see a pillar on the top of that was Hercules, and this becomes kind of a cult around Hercules as this man of strength and valor, and he does great feats for the sake of his country and his honor. And this cult of the supreme being was an attempt to reinvigorate the revolution. Unfortunately, it didn't really work. And that was because the reign of terror was coming to an end. People were becoming tired of the constant accusations, the life of paranoia, and particularly tired of Maximilian Robespierre. By July, by 6 weeks after the cult of the supreme being introduced, by July 27th, they arrest Robespierre. Robespierre attempts to take his own life, is stopped in the attempt, which is pictured here, and this leads to a period known as the Thermidorian reaction. It's a cooling down of the revolution, and it's marked by three things. It's marked by anti-Jacobinism. They get rid of Robespierre. He is the last person beheaded on the guillotine for a period of time. Of course, they're going to keep using the guillotine in France until the 1970s. But the whole system of the sans-culottes and the radicalization, that's all removed. They implement much more laissez-faire principles, which sounds good, but did lead to excessive inflation and ultimately ended in many people losing their food sources and food prices increasing. This whole period was run by the Directory, which was marked by more of a central position as they tried to sort out the competing factions within the revolution and come to some sort of middle position. It turns out that it's very difficult to come to middle positions after such a radical period as the Reign of Terror. And so this really just opens the door for the entrance of the man, Napoleon.